We also focused on our enduring support for Ukraine. The G7 has led the world in galvanizing and sustaining that support, and as we told Foreign Minister Kuleba today, Ukraine can count on us. To put Ukraine on a solid foundation for the next year, we must help Ukraine do 4 things at once. First, keep fighting to win back its territory. Second, build a world-class military force to ensure maximum deterrence for the long term and make clear to President Putin that he cannot and will not outlast Ukraine, and he cannot and will not outlast all of Ukraine's supporters. 28 countries have made concrete commitments to join us in this effort of building a Ukrainian fighting force for the future. Third, kickstart economic recovery and growth and bring more hope, more opportunity to the Ukrainian people. And fourth, accelerate the reform process to speed Ukraine's path to the European Union and to attract investment. All of these steps are designed to help Ukraine stand strongly on its own 2 feet.
This is my video update from Athens, Greece on this Wednesday, midday, November the 8th. Let's talk about some news, and let's start things off with a scoop from Axios. Here is the scoop from Axios. Biden tells Bibi 3-day fighting pause could help secure release of some hostages. Notice that Axios uses the words fighting pause, a 3-day fighting pause, because you are not allowed to use the C word. Ceasefire. Ceasefire. You cannot use that word. So the Biden White House, they are asking the Netanyahu administration for a 3-day fighting pause. Now, according to Axios, the reason that the Biden White House is asking for this 3-day fighting pause is because they are very close to securing the release of 10 to 15 hostages being held by Hamas, and also they are very close to obtaining a list from Hamas with the identities of the remaining hostages. And according to Axios, the Biden White House, they need 3 days to secure the release of these 10 to 15 hostages, and they need the time to verify the identities of the remaining hostages that will be on this list that Hamas is going to hand over to the Biden White House. Now, the countries that are involved in these negotiations are the United States, Israel, and Qatar. Qatar is the country that is acting as the go-between to Hamas, the interlocutor between the United States and Hamas. It is Qatar. Now, this is important because we have been told that the country that controls Hamas, that is behind Hamas, is Iran. So one would think that if Iran is the country that is controlling Hamas, you would need to speak to Iran or get another country to speak to Iran so that Iran can then convince Hamas to release hostages and provide this list of identities of the remaining hostages. You would have to go through Iran. But according to Axios, that is not the case. The country that is the go-between, that is acting as the interlocutor to Hamas, is Qatar. And here is what Axios actually says in the article. A senior U.S. official told reporters on Friday the indirect and complicated nature of the hostage negotiations has made it difficult to make progress in the talks. The Biden administration has been primarily working on the issue through the government of Qatar, where some Hamas leaders are based. CIA Director Bill Burns is in the Middle East this week and part of his focus is the hostages' release. He had talks in Israel and will meet Qatari officials later this week. So Qatar is the key as far as Hamas is concerned. You want to deal with Hamas, you want to communicate or negotiate with Hamas, you don't go via Iran, you go via Qatar. Axios says it. Hamas leaders based in Qatar. Hamas leaders based in Qatar. And Bill Burns, who is he going to meet with in the Middle East in order to try and wrap up this hostage release deal? He's going to meet with Qatari officials. So Burns in the Middle East is a type of admission. It's an admission in a way of the failed diplomacy of the top diplomat of the United States, Mr. Blinken. So Mr. Blinken, he failed spectacularly in his tour of the Middle East, and so the Biden White House has now sent the CIA director, Mr. Burns, to the Middle East in order to secure the release of these hostages and do whatever else the CIA director is going to be doing in the Middle East. And it makes sense because Burns is perhaps the only real professional diplomat in the Biden administration. I mean, he is CIA director, but he is a senior White House official, a top White House official with real diplomacy experience, perhaps the only one at such a high level with real diplomacy experience. Burns was, after all, the U.S. ambassador to Russia. So the children went to the Middle East and they accomplished nothing. And so now you have to send the one adult in the administration to the Middle East to try and hammer out some sort of deal and get to some sort of progress in this war in the Middle East. And as far as the 3-day fighting pause is concerned, we'll see if the CIA director can convince the Netanyahu administration to put a 3-day pause in the fighting, because the early indications are that the Netanyahu administration has said no to the request from the Biden White House for a 3-day pause. And the Israeli Defense Forces, they are saying that they cannot have a 3-day pause in the fighting because they are now currently engaged in operations in fierce fighting inside of Gaza City. Actually, they use the word in the heart, the words in the heart of Gaza City. They are fighting in the heart of Gaza City. So for them to put a 3-day pause in the fighting would be pretty much impossible. And even Netanyahu, he said that there's going to be no pause in the fighting at this point in time. He also warned Hezbollah in his latest statements as well. Netanyahu said that the IDF has been reaching deeper into Gaza than Hamas ever imagined, warning Lebanon's Hezbollah that it would be making the greatest mistake of its life if it opens a new full-on war front. So that was Netanyahu's latest statement. He is denying the request from the Biden White House for a 3-day pause in the fighting, as we do have intense fighting now taking place inside of Gaza City. The Israeli Defense Forces, they are claiming that they have one of the Hamas leaders surrounded inside of Gaza City, and that they are making progress in surrounding Gaza City, though we do have reports that the IDF has not fully encircled Gaza City at this moment. And we have reports from the Hamas side of things, where they claim that they are destroying a lot of Israeli tanks as Israel moves deeper into Gaza City. So it's hard to get a clear read as to what is exactly happening in this war, at least on a military level, because as I've said in many videos in the past, this conflict is not as open and transparent as the conflict in Ukraine. So the reports from Israel is that they are making progress and that they're fighting in the heart of Gaza City. One of the leaders of Hamas is surrounded at this very moment, and they cannot put a pause in the fighting. Hamas is saying that they are destroying Israeli military resources the deeper they get into Gaza City. So that is the update with regards to the war in Israel. And in the United States, the House is trying to get some money to Israel. They are trying to pass a bill. Mike Johnson, the new House Speaker, he is trying to get this $14 billion bill, which is money to Israel. He's trying to get this passed. And yesterday, the Democrats in the House, they blocked the $14 billion bill, which would see the United States sending money that, according to Mike Johnson, is urgently needed by the Israeli government to Israel. And the House Democrats, they said that they are blocking this $14 billion in aid to Israel because they don't like the fact that the aid package that Biden proposed has been the $100 billion aid package that Biden proposed has been split up into multiple parts. And the Democrats would like to see Mike Johnson and the House put a bill on the table that is bundled together. The $100 billion one-time aid package with money to Israel, Ukraine, Taiwan, and the southern border. That is what the Democrats want. So they blocked this $14 billion aid package to Israel. They want money sent to Ukraine. Let's see here. I have some quotes. Time is of the essence, and it's imperative that the Senate not delay delivering this crucial aid to Israel another day. That is what Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas said. And Patty Murray of Washington, the chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, said, "Our allies in Ukraine can no more afford a delay than our allies in Israel." So bundle the aid together. Let's get $60 billion to Ukraine. Let's get $14 billion to Israel. Let's get $10-15 billion to Taiwan, and let's send a couple of bucks, $5 or $10 to the southern border. That's pretty much the $100 billion aid package, right? They want it all bundled together, and why not? You know, I agree with the Democrats. Send $60 billion to Ukraine. I'm all for it, actually, because Elensky's good for it. Elensky's good for it. He said during his NBC Meet the Press interview he gave the other day, he said, "Look, if you can't give me money, well then, give us a loan. Give us the money on credit, and we'll pay you back." So, you know, look. Elensky said he's going to pay you back, America. He's good for it. So give him the $60 billion, give it to him on credit, and he's going to pay you back with interest. You have Elensky's word. He told you on NBC, Meet the Press, give me money. Don't want to give me money? Give me loan. Give me credit. I'll pay you back. I'm good for it. He said he's going to pay you back. He's going to pay you back. What's the problem? $60 billion? Just give him $100 billion. Give him 200 billion. He'll get you guys back. Don't worry. Don't worry about a thing. All of the money is going to be returned to the United States with interest. You have Elensky's word, minus the 10% for the big guy, of course. You always got to take the 10% big guy fee out of the 60 billion. So just keep that in mind. And since we're talking about the big guy, the New York Times, they ran an article the other day with the title, Biden confronts the limits of U.S. leverage in two conflicts. President Biden's influence over Israel and Ukraine seems far more constrained than expected, given his central role as a supplier of arms and intelligence. Wow, Biden's influence over Israel and Ukraine seems far more constrained. Interesting. So the New York Times, in this article, they claim that Biden, what drives Biden is his passion, his desire, his goal to be seen as a president, to go down in history as a U.S. president who fought for democracy, not only in the United States, but democracy around the world. That is what drives Biden. That's what gets Biden up out of bed every single morning, according to the New York Times. This passion, this drive from Joe Bidenopolis to protect democracy around the world. That is what the New York Times is reporting in this article. And they even say that when the war broke out in Israel, Biden said this: Hamas and Putin represent different threats, but they share this in common. They both want to completely annihilate a neighboring democracy, completely annihilate it. And according to the New York Times, Biden is going to stop Hamas and Russia from completely annihilating democracy. And then Elensky announced that he's going to be canceling elections in Ukraine. And Biden's like, dude, I just said that I'm protecting democracy and you're going to cancel elections in Ukraine? Z-Man, what are you doing? Come on, man. Come on, Z-Man. So yeah, that's all jokes aside. That's a real quote from Biden, by the way, that the New York Times has in this article. And the New York Times does claim in this article that what motivates Biden, the driving force behind the myth, the legend that is Joe Bidenopoulos, is his desire to protect democracy around the world. But the problem that Biden has is that he's fighting two wars now, and he's starting to realize that the U.S.'s power and American resources are not unlimited. And he really doesn't have that much control over what Israel does and over what the Z-Man in Kiev does. So the other interesting part about this New York Times article is way down towards the end of this article. They make a very, very interesting admission. They say that the ATACMS that Biden approved to give over to Ukraine, the ATACMS Wonder weapons. The New York Times, citing U.S. officials, anonymous sources, they claim that inside the Biden White House, they're starting to have doubts about the wonder weapon that is the ATACMS long-range missiles. And the New York Times is reporting that the Russians, they're just moving their military assets further back out of the range of the ATACMS missiles, and they're making this wonder weapon not so wonder. is what the New York Times is reporting. And they talk about how Zaluzhny, the Ukraine general, gave an interview to The Economist, and Zaluzhny said that Ukraine needs new super duper technology. General Zaluzhny said that it would take a major technological advance in weaponry to end the stalemate on the ground, and added that there will most likely be no deep and beautiful breakthrough. But it is unclear what that technology leap would look like. Mr. Biden's aides say they have now given Mr. Zelensky every weapons system he has requested, most recently ATACMS, the long-range missile systems Mr. Biden had long resisted providing because he feared they might cross a red line that could lead Mr. Putin to reach for nuclear weapons. Now the fear about the ATACMS is that they will not make that big a difference because the Russians are learning how to park their aircraft beyond the weapons' reach. Who would have ever thought that the Russians would think about moving their aircraft, moving their aircraft beyond the ATACMS' reach? Who would have ever thought that the Russians would figure out that solution to the ATACMS problem? How did the Russians figure that one out? I don't know. I really, really don't know. But yeah. So the Biden White House, according to the New York Times, they're scratching their head and they're saying, they're saying, God, Zaluzhny is saying that we have a stalemate, and the only way that we can achieve a beautiful breakthrough. Those are the words that Zaluzhny used in his Economist interview. A beautiful breakthrough. Beautiful, beautiful. How can we achieve a beautiful breakthrough? The only way is with a major technological leap. But we've given them the ATACMS, and we're going to give them F-16s. What more can we give them? We have no more wonder weapons. That's the problem. That's the limits of Joe Bidenopolis' power. And that is what the New York Times is reporting. And, I gave him the solution a couple of days ago. I did a video and I told him the solution after the Economist interview of Zaluzhny came out. I told the Biden White House if they were watching my video, they would know what wonder weapon they need to hand over to the Elensky regime. It's the Death Star. The Death Star. That's what they need to hand over to the Elensky regime. And then Emperor Palpatine, also known as Joe Bidenopolis, he could give the order for the Death Star to, and that would be it. So, yeah, that's the New York Times article, everybody. And how about Elensky's trip to Israel, which has now been officially canceled? It is canceled. And according to the Times of Israel, get this. This is great. This should be my clown world, but it's not. According to the Times of Israel, Elensky, and I quote, was very disappointed that the trip had to be canceled. He was very disappointed about the leaks that he was going to Israel. And he had wanted the trip to only become public once he set foot on Israeli soil. If Elensky comes to Israel, he will be welcomed with open arms, an Israeli official said on Sunday, according to the Times of Israel. So Elensky was very upset that the trip was canceled. He was very upset, according to the Times of Israel, very upset that the news of his trip to Israel was leaked. Very upset. When it was the Elensky administration a month ago that said to the media that they're trying to plan a trip to Israel. They said it a month ago. I was in Belgrade talking about this. Elensky wants to travel to Israel. That's what the Elensky administration told the media. and now he is coming out and saying that he's very disappointed, very upset that his trip to Israel was leaked. The whole world knew he wanted to go to Israel. The whole world knew he was trying to get the green light to visit Netanyahu. Everyone knew, but according to Elensky, this was going to be a surprise. This was going to be a surprise trip. He wanted to show up in Israel, and then he wanted the whole world to know that he was in Israel. It was going to be a surprise. Surprise, Bibi, I'm here. I'm here in Tel Aviv. Surprise. What was Elensky thinking? He was going to jump out of a cake or something? He was going to he was going to be inside of a cake, and they were going to call Netanyahu into his office, and they were going to roll in a huge cake. And then Elensky was going to jump out of that cake and say, surprise. I'm joking. I'm joking, but I mean, this is clown world stuff, man. For a whole month, you've been going on and on, Mr. Elensky. Z-Man, you have been going on and on about how you want to go to Israel. I want to go to every week. I want to go to Israel. I want to show my support to Israel. I want to go to Israel. I want to meet Netanyahu. I want to take a photo with Netanyahu. And now Elensky is saying that the trip was canceled because there was a media leak that he wanted to go to Israel. Oh, boy. But, America, give him $60 billion because he's good for it. He's good for it. Give it to him on credit, on loan. I have machine. You put your credit card in machine, punch in PIN code, $60 billion, come to me. Give me credit card. So Arestovich, one-time BFF of Elensky, now he's his arch rival, Mr. Arestovich. He put out a tweet yesterday, and he warned Elensky not to touch Zaluzhny. He said if Elensky touches Zaluzhny, if he gets rid of Zaluzhny, then that will be the last mistake Elensky will ever make. And the reason Arestovich put out this tweet is because of the bomb, the alleged assassination of Zaluzhny's number two the other day. And so everyone understands, I imagine that everyone understands, including Arestovich, that this was some sort of message to Zaluzhny, given the fact that we are seeing a power struggle in Kiev at the moment between Elensky and Zaluzhny. And so Arestovich is connecting some very obvious dots, and he is telling Elensky, okay, we saw what happened to Zaluzhny's number two, but I'm warning you, Elensky, don't go after Zaluzhny. If you go after Zaluzhny, everything is going to unravel, because Zaluzhny, well, he's the guy that at the moment controls the Ukraine military, even though Elensky is firing all kinds of military officials in Elensky's inner circle, and he's firing these military officials not via Zaluzhny. Elensky is firing them directly. He's going over Zaluzhny's head. Well, I guess you could say that Elensky is, as president, he is the commander-in-chief of the Ukraine military, but you would imagine that during a war, he would consult with his general, and he would tell his general to fire these Ukraine military officials, but that's not what's happening. Elensky, he is firing these military officials because he's trying to isolate Zaluzhny, because these guys are part of Zaluzhny's inner circle, and he is working his way towards firing Zaluzhny as he isolates him. And Arestovich is saying, don't do it. Do not go after Zaluzhny. So that is the message from Arestovich. And let's now talk about regime change in Russia, because as Ukraine unravels, perhaps the only way that they will be able to, the collective West, the Elensky regime, will be able to win this war is if there's a regime change in Russia. And you even have a German economist. Now, I've never heard of this guy, to be quite honest, but his tweets are going viral. His name is Mr. Brooks, and he was a chief economist for Goldman Sachs, an FX strategist for Goldman Sachs, and a senior economist at IMF News. And I guess he's a very respected German economist. I don't even know if he's German. His Twitter profile says he's in DC, so I don't know. Anyway, his tweets are going viral because he is basically saying, Mr. Brooks, that the only way to save the German economy and to save the entire collective West is for regime change in Russia. That is how you can save the sinking German economy, the sinking European Union, and the sinking collective West via Big Serge, the chief economist at the Institute of International Finance, lays out an economic strategy for Germany that relies on trying to crash oil markets to force regime change in Russia. And Mr. Brooks's tweet says what Germany needs. Number one, Germany needs cheap Russian gas. Number two, the way to get that is regime change in Russia. Number three, only then can Nord Stream be turned on again. Number four, financial crisis may lead to regime change. So crash the oil market, try to crash the Russian economy, overthrow the Putin government, get your hands on Russian resources, including oil and gas, and turn on Nord Stream again. Turn on Nord Stream and all is good. Germany saved, the European Union saved, United States saved. That's the plan from Mr. Brooks. Another tweet says, Germany is a formidable economic engine. German GDP per capita in blue grew in line with the US in black for 2 decades, but is now falling behind rapidly. Only way to stop this is regime change in Moscow. Once Putin is gone, Germany can start buying Russian gas again. Sounds like a plan. Sounds like a plan. Hasn't Germany tried this whole, take over Russia plan before, regime change in Russia plan before? Haven't they tried that? It didn't really work out too well, did it, for Germany? But yeah, that's one way to get your hands on cheap Russian oil and gas, to get access to cheap Russian oil and gas, is to try and crash the oil markets, crash the Russian economy, which you've already tried. You've tried that in the first 3-4 months of the special military operation. It didn't work out too well trying to crash the Russian economy. You made the Russian economy much, much stronger, 3% growth in 2023. But anyway, you try to crash the Russian economy, and that will lead to regime change in Russia. So yeah, that's one way you can go about getting access to Russian resources. Another way Germany can go about getting access to Russian resources is to stop supporting the conflict in Ukraine and to talk to the Russians. Right? That could be another way that you could get access to the Russian resources. It sounds a lot simpler, doesn't it, than, trying to crash the global oil market, the global economy in hopes that you're going to remove Putin. I think an easier way, Mr. Brooks, and I'm no economist, I'm no expert, but I don't know. I think an easier way would be for Germany to just, Olaf Scholz to just call Putin, apologize, say he's sorry for supporting Elensky, supporting the losing side, Elensky, that Germany is going to stop financing and funding Ukraine, and then to tell Putin, please forgive us. And what can we do to start doing business again? Tell me, Vladimir, what do I need to do in order to make things right again? That sounds like a much better plan. Anyway, the U.S. is not going to be happy if that was to happen, but, it sounds a lot easier than trying to crash the oil markets and hoping for Putin to be overthrown. So let's see here. Yeah, let's wrap this video up. So I guess that was like a pre-clown world, huh? Let's do a clown world. And this is coming out of Portugal, because the Elensky curse strikes again. This time we have the Prime Minister of Portugal. The Prime Minister of Portugal, because of a corruption investigation, he stepped down. He sent his resignation to the president, and he is finito, and he absolutely did meet with Elensky. He absolutely shook Elensky's hands, so this absolutely qualifies as an Elensky curse moment, an Elensky curse incident. So another one bites the dust. The Prime Minister of Portugal, Mr. Antonio Costa, resigned Tuesday after his government was involved in a widespread corruption probe. The 62-year-old Costa, Portugal's socialist leader since 2015, said in a nationally televised address that, in these circumstances, obviously, I've presented my resignation to the President of the Republic. And the Prime Minister, he says that he is innocent of these corruption charges, and these corruption charges are part of a broad investigation being conducted in Portugal, where Costa, the Prime Minister, is being investigated for his handling of a lithium mining project and for allegedly rigging contracts for a massive hydrogen terminal. It's always about the oil and the gas and the lithium and the hydrogen. That's what it's always about, isn't it? Always. So, yeah, another day, another Elensky curse. Who is next? Is it going to be Trudeau? Is it going to be Biden? Netanyahu may have dodged a bullet by having the Elensky trip canceled. Trump dodged a bullet by not taking up Elensky's invitation to visit Kiev. By the way, the Putin, I forgot, he is the Donald. So we have the Donald and we have the Putin. But yeah, who is going to be next in the Elensky curse? Place your bets. All right, that is the video. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop. Use the code TheDuran20 and get 20% off all merch. Take care.